Hey everybody, it's Angela and I am back with a drawing video, and this is a little bit larger drawing than I normally do, so you're going to have to bear with me as I figure out the best way to film and narrate and present something like this. I did go ahead and speed the drawing up quite a bit just because it was so large and took so long, but in the future I might do some smaller drawings that are maybe real time so that I can give a little bit more in-depth instruction as to what I'm doing. But this was I started this in the middle of winter and I was really wanting to draw something really bright and happy to, pull me up out of the doldrums of winter. And so I started this one, and this is Prismacolor pencil on Stonehenge paper. And I like Stonehenge because there's a lot of tooth to it, and so I can pack a lot of layers of color on top of this paper. And so what I did was I did do a light sketch previously, and now I'm going back over it with a red pencil, because sometimes my camera, when I take pictures of something so bright and colorful like this, it kind of blows out and I can't tell where a petal stops and starts. So I had to make some of this up because I couldn't really tell from that photograph. And that's one I took a couple years ago in my garden, and I just wanted to draw it. And so what I'm doing here is the petals, this is a ranuncula flower. I think I'm saying that right, I'm not positive. And it has like red tips to it, and then it kind of streaks red over the yellow body of the petal. And so I'm using a variety of different reds and yellows to layer up the colors to make them how I want. And that's the thing you do with colored pencil. You don't just use one yellow and one red. You layer your pencils up and you kind of mix the colors right there on your paper. And some books even call color pencil drawing, they call it color pencil painting, because in effect you are kind of painting and layering and mixing those colors just like you would for an acrylic, or oil painting. And I like colored pencil and graphite drawing a lot, just because when I started doing it, after your initial investment of the pencils, it's a very inexpensive hobby to do. They're very portable, so I can take them with me when I go places, and also they're very clean. I didn't have to worry about paint falling on to the carpet at the apartment I was renting, so they're not messy like that. So if you like that and you like maybe a little more control, drawing in colored pencil might be for you. So that said, what I'm doing here is I'm layering these colors, and even the order in which you layer them can change how it looks. If I had one yellow and one green pencil and I layered the yellow first and then put green on top of it, I would come up with one color. And then if I put the green first and the yellow on top of that, I would come up with a little bit different color. So not only the pencils that you choose, but also the order in which you layer them will give you different colors to choose from. And for a beginner, what I would suggest is that you do that on a piece of scratch paper to just kind of figure out, which pencils you want to use first and how you want to layer them, and then transfer that knowledge over to your finished piece of artwork. So what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of remembering, I'm showing myself, okay, here's where my lightest lights are, or my highlights, and I'm also kind of blocking in some of my shadow areas too. And for that, where the petal curves over, where the apex of that curve is usually where the highlight is. So I want to leave that my lightest yellow. And then underneath the petals is where my shadows are going to be. And then the streaks of red that go through the petal, I don't want to take those just from the edge of the petal straight to the center of where the flower would be. I want to curve those streaks up and over the petal to also give a sense of the shape. So all those things help to make this a more realistic 3D looking drawing. So if that's the effect you're going for, that's a few different ways to achieve it. And I'm just layering these up, and at the end a lot of times I'll burnish with whatever my lightest color is, and I'm just making sure that the paper is packed with color. And that's the style that this is called, or I've heard it called, is packed with color. And that's just where you fill the tooth of your paper all with colored pencil so that no white shows up through. Now you could very well just do a scumble layer, a light layer of pencil, and let that white paper show up through. It's just another style, and if that's the effect you're going for, and it achieves the look that you want, then there's totally nothing wrong with that. You just, want to do whatever gets the look you're trying to achieve. And I am by no means a professional at this. I've taken some community college courses in colored pencil, and I've just used them for a lot of years. And so this is what I do. And I don't think there's any right or wrong way to do colored pencil. Again, like I say, as long as it achieves the look that you're going for. So I kind of skipped ahead here because it's the same with each petal. I use the same principles just over and over again. And I kind of got lost a little bit over on this side. Whenever I get lost as to where I'm at, I kind of set the photo aside, and I just go by what looks right to the eye. Is my scale right? Are my highlights right? Are my shadows right? And as long as you do that, no one's going to notice because they're not going to have the photo to refer back to. So it's all good. And on the photograph, there's actually more red on the right side of the flower than yellow. And I put more yellow on there just to give my flower a little bit more uniform look. And so I'm just going back through here, putting in the rest of my colors. And then I switch to the background, and you can see when I hold my pencil sideways like this, I'm using a draftsman's grip, and that puts the side of your lead, or the biggest surface area of your lead, to the paper, and you can move a little faster. And then when I hold it upright like this, that's called, like a writer's grip, and that's helping me get right up to the edge of the flower and in that small space. I actually pull out a little bit of purple or blue right here, and that helps me get those shadow colors. And I'm going to go over this, somewhat lightly, because I'm going to go and I'm going to do several layers until I get this packed with color. But what I do is I first kind of go over it, and then I kind of get tired of doing it, so I switch to the frog, and then off camera I go back and finish packing that background with color. And as you can see on that background, it's out of focus where my flower and the frog are in focus. So I want to make sure that, I give interest to the background by showing that there is foliage back there and the hint of the structure of the foliage, but I don't want to get too detailed with it. I just kind of want to block in my color areas and give the feeling that there's a lot of greenery back there. And I actually make my background a little bit more yellow, to the yellow side, than the photograph shows, because at the time I was worried that my frog might blend into my background a little bit too much. I wanted to make sure to keep my frog more of a true color, so the more olive color. So I decided to let my background be a little bit more yellow. In retrospect, or in hindsight, I wish I wouldn't have made it quite so yellow, because it's a little bit more vibrant than I would have wished, but it still looks really nice. So, but yeah, if I had it to do over again, I'd probably dull down this background a little more than I do. And you can see I'm just kind of going through, giving the hints of something back there. I think I had a bunch of like stargazer lilies back there, so I think that's lily foliage behind the frog there. But yeah, I just want to give a hint of that, because that is a huge amount of the picture, is just this big green background. So I don't want it to be completely devoid of interest, but it isn't my focal point, so I don't have to spend too much time on it. But yeah, I do go ahead and go over it like this across the whole background, and then I go over it a couple more times to pack in the color. But yeah, I kind of I get tired of it and I move on to the frog here for a little bit. And that's always a good thing. If you get tired of one spot, move to another. So here you can see I'm just kind of building up my colors. And then I switch over to the frog, and you can see in that background up there that there is still quite a bit of white showing, and I will fill that in later. But right now I'm taking a stylus, which is just has a metal, it's a metal tool with a ball on the end, and I'm pressing it into the paper to kind of deboss the paper a little bit. And that, what that does is it indents the paper a little bit so that when I go and draw over it, my lead is bigger than that indentation. So my lead is going to skip over that debossed spot, and that white highlight will stay. So whatever I deboss is going to stay white on this. And that's my way to keep the little tiny highlights that I wouldn't normally otherwise be able to keep. Because even if you sharpen your pencil lead really sharp, you can't get a huge amount of detail, especially by leaving little tiny highlights. But the using a stylus tool to emboss that into or deboss that into the paper is a good trick to have in your toolbox. And so here I start going, I'm kind of trying to figure out what colors I want to do on this frog, and I'm kind of practicing on his leg here. I should have done it on a piece of scrap like I told you to do, but no, I practiced it on his foot, and then I didn't like that color. So you'll see here in a little bit, I do take a little piece of Draftsman's tape right there, and I burnish on top of it, and that lifts some of the pigment up so that I can put the pigment color I want on top. And that is one thing about colored pencils, is you can't erase them. You've kind of got to work with what you've got. But using the tape or using a more rough eraser can sometimes lift enough pigment that you can make a change. And that's what I did here. And so again, that's another trick to have, in your drawing toolbox. And so I'm going over this and just kind of pulling my greens in there, kind of making sure that I put some little cast shadows where all the bumps on his skin would be. And I use the marine green, lime peel, and olive green mostly for the green colors of the frog. And then on the white parts, they're not a true white for his belly and around his lips and stuff. It's more of kind of a yellow, creamy white. So I use a really light colored pencil with a little bit of yellow to achieve those lighter areas. Now for this black, the top of his lip is really black, but the bottom of his lip is more of a charcoal. It has some cast shadows or cast highlights being bounced back onto them. So I used a bit of charcoal on the bottom portion of his lip, and I'll do that here in just a minute. But I'm just kind of going through with my black pencil, picked up a couple areas. And there you can see I'm going back in with kind of a brown pencil, and I'm just kind of giving some variation to my black. I didn't want it to just all be stark black. I wanted to use a dark brown, a charcoal, and it gives some variations to that black color. And you can see in his eye, that little highlight that's still in his eye is where I debossed it with a stylus. Same thing with his eardrum that is to the right of his eye, that little round kind of horseshoe shaped white thing there. That's his ear, and I debossed that with the stylus in order to hold that highlight. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have been able to capture that detail as well. Now for his eye, I'm using some kind of yellows and oranges. I thought about using the gold pencil because Prismacolor does have a metallic gold, but I was afraid that the light might catch the metallic differently and that only his eye would have it and it would look funny. So I just went with yellow and orange pencils to achieve that golden color of his eye. And on a tree frog, the stripe that goes behind his eye across his ear, it kind of goes through his actual eyeball as well. So I kind of pulled that in to kind of go across his eye a little bit. And then I just made sure that it was lighter on the top of his eye, because his eye kind of bulges out there and it catches the light or has a reflection at the top of his eyeball. And again, I'm just going through lightening up some of the black, giving a few little highlights to the black with that blue pencil. Also using the blue pencil underneath the belly to give a little color, along with some grays and stuff on his chest to give some shadow down in there. Now I'm darkening up some of the greens, just kind of making sure my values are correct. Shading that in. And then I go back at the end and I'll pick out where all the lumps and bumps are. Try to give some texture, lots of texture to his skin because it's so bumpy. And I think this frog thought he was hiding. He sat really still hiding there. I don't think he realized that he was a completely different color from that flower, and he stuck out like a sore thumb. But yeah, I like frogs, so I really enjoyed this picture and wanted to go ahead and draw it. And there I am, just putting more texture. I'm going to darken in this far leg that's in shadow back there. And then that is pretty much my whole drawing. And you can see, if I didn't mention it, how much more I burnished that background and filled that and packed that with color. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I know this was a little bit longer video than usual. If you have any questions or anything, just leave them down below. If you have suggestions or things you'd want to see in future videos, let me know. Again, I'm not gonna stop doing my scrapbooking or altered books or junk journal videos. I just wanted to throw some drawing videos in there as well. So again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you again in the next video. Bye.